If you're doing hundreds of crunches, sit-ups, and leg raises trying to build a strong core for riding, but you still find yourself bouncing out of the saddle or collapsing a hip when your horse spooks, you are wasting your time. But here's the truth. A visible six-pack does not equal a functional rider's core. In fact, training your abs with crunches is training the exact opposite movement pattern of what you need in the saddle. It might be making you a worse rider. What's the real culprit? The six-pack muscle called the rectus abdominis is designed to flex your spine forward. But when you're on a 1,200-pound animal, you don't want to flex your spine. You want a 360-degree cylinder of deep stabilizing muscles that resist movement. Your core isn't a movement system, it's a pressure system. Whether you're a competitive dressage rider trying to develop that truly independent seat, or a jumper who wants to be able to absorb landing forces more effectively, this is the exact mechanism that is holding you back. Today, I'm gonna go over a 3-step anti-movement protocol that trains your core exactly how it needs to work in the saddle. I'm Coach Sando, an equestrian sports performance coach. Let's talk about building a real core. Now, I'm gonna go over 4 points to help you understand what it takes to build a rider-ready core. The first point is the myth of the crunch. Now, a crunch is not inherently a bad exercise whatsoever. Now, its purpose is to shorten the distance between your ribs and your pelvis, really activating that rectus abdominal muscle. But let me ask you a question. When do you ever want to flex your spine when you're riding? Almost never. We want a tall, upright, and neutral spine. The second point that I want to go over is something I call the Jenga tower analogy. Think of your trunk and spine like a Jenga tower. Most people, when they're trying to train their core for riding, focus more on the anterior muscles, your rectus abdominis being one of the main ones. Now, if all of the pressure's coming anteriorly, your Jenga tower is going to topple forward. Instead, you want to think of wrapping your tower with like shrinking wrap paper. That is going to create the pressure from not only the front, but also the sides and the back, causing a lot more stability through that Jenga tower, which is what you want when you ride. Which brings me to the third point, which is called the independent seat mechanisms. So what are these mechanisms? Well, there are some musculatures. The first one is what we call our transverse abdominis. Think about it like a natural weightlifting belt that you have. The next one is a multifidus, which lies on your spine to help you stabilize your spine. And the third structure is not a muscle, it's called your diaphragm. It helps contain proper pressure. Now, when you can create this pressure through your trunk and spine, it will allow this independent seat from your pelvis because you have the stability that you need from your core. Now, when you have that stability, just think about it. Your sternum will stay in the right position during a canter. Your arms are going to be able to have more supple movement patterns. See, the trunk and spine in this independent seat is not about creating movement through your core, it's about resisting it so that other structures like your pelvis can do all of the movement, which is probably what your horse likes. Point number 4 is a reality check. It's a pelvic floor reality check. So we talked about this cylinder and then the diaphragm being the top of the cylinder so that we can contain pressure. But the pelvic floor is the bottom of that cylinder. If the pelvic floor is not working properly, then the pressure can leak down through it and we lose all type of stability. It is very important to work on your pelvic floor strength so that you can make that cylinder nice and tight, create stability that we need to allow proper movement. This is especially important for all the female riders. Now, before we fix your core, we need to test if your deep core stabilizers are actually firing or if you're just holding your breath and bracing with that rectus abdominis. Now stand up right now, wherever you're watching this, and let's test your intra-abdominal pressure. All right, stand tall, place one hand on your belly button and the other on your low back. I want you to take a deep breath in and let your belly expand into the front of your hand. Now, as you're breathing out, gently draw in your belly button towards your spine and think about lifting that pelvic floor like you're about to stop your pee. Now, what does a pass look like? If you feel tension deep inside your abdomen, wrapping all the way around the back of your hand, and you can still breathe normally while you're holding deep tension, congratulations. What does a fail look like? Well, you sucked in your stomach, held your breath, Your shoulders hiked up to your ears, and you can only feel the front of your abs clenching. Here's the reality check. If you have to hold your breath to stabilize your core on the ground, you are going to hold your breath in the saddle. And a rider who isn't breathing is a rigid and bouncy rider. If you failed that breathing test, or if your current routine is just 100 crunches, we are throwing that out today. We need to focus on exercises that challenge our ability to resist movement. In sports science, we call that anti-movement exercises. Here are the 3 you need to do. The first exercise we're gonna go over is an anti-extension exercise called a banded dead bug. It's one of my favorites. It really helps you understand how to breathe properly to maintain a neutral pelvis so that your back is supported to the ground so that you get a good feeling from the floor on what it feels like to have a stable trunk and spine. So here's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need a resistance band tied to a pole or anchored to something. So what you'll do is you're going to lay down on the ground away from your band, and you wanna position your hands so that they're up towards the ceiling. The setup for this exercise is really important here. So what I try to do is I'll take a deep breath to start, and my back is hollowed. So my low back is not on the ground. Right before I get ready to work, I am going to roll my pelvis under my shoulders so that I can feel my low back against the ground. That is the movement that sets up everything in this exercise. The band here, I'm using to pull and get a little tension to help my core feel how much pressure I need to go through it so that I can stabilize my trunk and spine. So level number 1 is I always tell people to start off by doing the breathing in, breathing out, and pull on the band. Just get used to breathing out and feeling the pressure while I'm still being able to talk, that I can feel that my hips are under my shoulders and I can feel that pressure in my core. Once I get this dialed in, the next part is setting your feet up and your legs in a 90-90 position. You'll start again with your deep breath, breathe out, and then extend a leg and still be able to maintain that low back on the ground. Breathe in again, breathe out and pull, and extend the other leg. And then back to the middle. Once you get that leg extended, your back is gonna want to extend. But there's where you have to really focus on your breathing and create the pressure to keep your back down on the ground. If you learn how to do that, when you're riding, you'll be able to move better through your pelvis because your core is a lot more stable through breath work, not through tension. I want you to do about 2 to 3 sets of this exercise, and you can start just by understanding how to set your pelvis and then graduate to maybe only using one leg to extend out and don't worry about alternating. And then you can work your way up to alternating. And the rep range should be anywhere between 8 reps and 15 reps each leg. It all depends on where your starting point is. Just to be on the safe side, I would start on the 8 and work my way up to 15. All right, let's go over the next exercise. Exercise number 2 is an anti-rotation exercise, which is called the Pallof press. It's a very popular exercise. Here's how it works. You are going to be pressing your band away from you. Now the band is going to want to rotate your whole body. What your goal is to do with proper breath work is to maintain that breathing pressure so that your trunk and spine, your belly button could be pointing straight ahead. So this is the setup. I want you to measure out how far your arms are so that way you can have a straight line from your hands to the anchor point where your band is. But you're gonna start with your hands here at your chest. You're gonna get into the squat position. Now I'm gonna turn this way so you can see my low back. What I want to do right before I go is I take a deep breath and then lock in that neutral spine or pelvis. That way this is what's stabilizing your core. Okay, so you'll go breathe in and you'll see my hip tuck under. Then I'm ready to do the exercise. So again, big deep breath, roll that hip or pelvis under the shoulder, and then you're going to breathe out and extend your arms in front of you. Now you might want to lean and get a little bit of biomechanical advantage by leaning away from the anchor point, but you want to try to stay as still as possible, even though you're extending your arms, because you're breathing and using that pressure in your core to allow movement while this stays still. So a full rep would be like this. Breathe in, roll the hips, breathe out, hold it for 1, 2, 3, and then you bring it back in. Take another deep breath, roll, push, and 1, 2, 3. What's most likely going to happen is that you're going to want to go quick. Another thing is you're going to want to tighten and create tension. Let the breath work help you. Push down that diaphragm by breathing out. Even hold P. Get that pelvic floor to help you so that you can get not only your obliques to help you, your transverse abdominis, but also that pelvic floor and the diaphragm to create that pressure within that cylinder. So breathing is what is important here, not the act. The act, I'm sure you're going to be able to get it. But what I don't want you to do is to push out and then start squeezing or rolling your shoulders forward. Because if that's your habit, that's probably what's going to happen. A great tip that I give all of my clients is get a like $10 vanity mirror, like a stand-up mirror, and watch yourself in the mirror and see how you look. That way you can get feedback on what it looks like. And then you can go, oh, I can see myself doing this, or I can see myself moving over to the other side. So mirror, great way to give yourself feedback if you're not videoing yourself or there's someone coaching you doing that. Let's move on to the next exercise. Okay, the last exercise that we're gonna go over is an anti-lateral flexion. This is for someone that has some issues collapsing on one side. Not to say that it's caused by a weak core. There's a lot of things that happen, but this at least gives you a tool that you can use to check the box that, hey, my core's strong enough. It has to be something else, another reason why I'm collapsing. Anyways, you're gonna use a kettlebell. And the whole purpose of the kettlebell is to weight you on one side, and you're trying to resist that collapse with the weight. Now, the couple things have to happen in order for this to work well. The first thing you have to do is keep the kettlebell or dumbbell. You might even be able to use like a water bucket filled all the way. Give yourself a little bit of splash room at the top, but you want to be able to keep that kettlebell, in this case, away from you a little bit. Now, you're also going to be bringing your shoulder back and down just a tad. Why do we want to do that? Because if we're holding on to something, let's make it functional by strengthening our rotator cuffs. So when you hold your kettlebell a little further back and then down, you're stimulating those muscles in the posterior shoulder to strengthen. More importantly, those rotator cuff muscles that help you so that if you're ever hand holding your horse and he spooks or he jolts and you are still holding on to those reins, that shoulder doesn't get hurt. You wouldn't be surprised on how many people I work with that have had previous shoulder injuries from holding on to reins and tearing up their posterior rotator cuffs. So this is a way to help with that. Now, once you get that shoulder position, I want you to think, okay, this is my upright position. This is where a mirror comes in handy because you might be like this. Oh yeah, I'm perfectly straight. Maybe that's happening when you ride. So you got to make sure that you understand that's probably straight. This is where my center is. It might feel like I'm leaning a little bit towards the kettlebell, but it actually looks straight. Once we're there, offhand is going to be on the other hip. And what we're going to do with this exercise, it's called the kettlebell suitcase march. So what you'll do is you're going to bring your knees up to your chest, and no matter which knee is coming up, you're trying to always be stable. Always be stable. And by stable, I mean, instead of this, being here. The breath work for this is very important. I'm always breathing in, breathing out. In as the knee's coming down, out when my knee's coming out. So again, just so that you can see, I'm going to start with the breath work of inhaling before I start. getting the rhythm, spending a little time up top so that I get an opportunity to breathe in, right, as I'm bringing the leg down, and then breathe out while I'm here. I usually will let all of my air out, and then that way when I'm bringing my foot down, I'm inhaling again. Once you get the timing down right, and you can understand how to create the pressure with your breath work, this will start becoming a lot easier. The most important part, like every single exercise we've gone through so far, is breathing. All right, suitcase carry, again, 2 to 3 times a week. I would do about 10 knee lifts on each side, so that's 20 steps, and work my way up to maybe 40 steps. Another version of this is to travel. So you can actually start marching forward and getting a pause at the top. That way, you can start getting some transit effects. So now we're implementing more movement with the core stability, which is an amazing progression of this exercise. Every workout you do should include at least one anti-extension, one anti-rotation, and one anti-lateral flexion exercise. That is your complete core program. Do this routine 2 to 3 times a week, and it can be done at the gym or modified with bands, and you can do it at home. Your core is not a muscle you train in isolation. It is a system you train in the context of movement. By doing that, you train your core to be the anchor while your limbs are moving. This is exactly what happens in the saddle. If you ditch the crunches and implement these 3 anti-movement exercises consistently, you're going to build a core that actually functions in the saddle. You'll stop collapsing, you'll develop a truly independent seat, and you'll finally be able to absorb your horse's movement instead of fighting it. Remember, riding is a skill sport, but you are an athlete, so you need to train like one. If you want more science-backed strength and conditioning protocols built specifically for equestrian athletes, hit that subscribe button right now. I put up new videos every single week to help you ride stronger, sit deeper, and stay pain-free. Drop a comment below and let me know which one of these 3 exercises you found the hardest. Keep up the great work, keep those heels down, and I'll see you in the next video.